And so for you, as you lead the CX practice and in particular AI and self-service with inside of RingCentral, what are the trends that you're seeing, maybe cross industry? If you want to call out a specific industry, you can, but is there any specific trend that you're seeing that is the core component of the conversations that you're having?
So we've really now defined our AI strategy across 5 different pillars. And I think it's important, one, for people to understand that AI means a lot today, right? It's not just a cure-all or a single solution. The biggest one, especially for contact centers, is conversational AI. And I think that will continue to be, the biggest player. Although that's taken a big step forward this year with the advent of ChatGPT and that really going mainstream. I think
Hmm.
more people are aware of AI than ever before, but really it's just an enhancement to previous tools that were already in place. And the solutions that we offer are starting to think about, okay, how do we start to include some of this new functionality and technology into it to continue improving the experience, but also keeping some guardrails in place because this is a public facing thing and there's an associated risk with that. The second kind of part 1B is process automation. So we're not just answering FAQs, right? This is really now complex capability for the AI to do things like schedule and reschedule appointments, update, upsell orders, potentially gather all kinds of information to increase conversion. So really a multi-phased conversation that the AI is capable of having. The third big one, and this is probably the biggest growth outside of ChatGPT this year, has been Agent Assist AI. So many of you have probably heard of this or maybe seen some stuff at a trade show, but by far our biggest growing bucket of AI. How do we empower the agents to have the necessary tools to serve the customer as the conversation is unfolding, whether that be dynamic scripting, pulling information from a knowledge base that's contextual, but again, just equipping them to have a robust conversation. And then it moves into things like AI routing and AI analytics. And how do we have some of that great machine learning to come in and tell us what's working, what's not working. And that's both for our agent teams as well as the AI itself. So really the machines teaching the machines, which is, I think, what we've all been waiting for.
So this is, when you talk about your pillars, this is fundamentally like a framework that you've created with inside of RingCentral to categorize various different user stories and create maybe a path to the product that's going to solve that the best.
Yeah, I think because AI has become such a ubiquitous term, a big part of our job here at RingCentral is just helping to educate our customers and prospective customers. There's a lot of confusion. There's a ton of noise. I think many of us are waking up to 100 emails a day, marketing emails saying, hey, come buy our AI. And it's hard to sort out what's real and what's vaporware. And that framework really allows us to break down what a customer's current objectives are for the year and say, okay, now we can start to prioritize, maybe here's your first phase of investment, and then let's plan to grow over the next 2 to 3 years. I think that's one reason people look at RingCentral is we're not a one-stop shop. We really have a full portfolio of products, even if it's not something that makes sense now, something that your company can evolve into in the future.
That makes sense. I mean, obviously there's strategy and there's tactics. And so what you're really talking about is making sure that you have the proper strategies so that there is a level of depth and there is some longevity in the relationship period, right? That we know that you can continue to take people down the path of, driving business sustainability and servicing clients as needs change. But ultimately there's got to be something like right now that's a problem that you're looking to solve and maybe the next 2 or 3 steps.
Yeah, 100%. I think it also too, we have to recognize one, the better we understand our customers' business, the better we can serve them. So that's always step one. What are you trying to accomplish? What are the pain points in getting you to that ultimate goal? That's always where we start in every call. I think the other thing too that maybe is underestimated is even if the contact center or team that we're working with gets excited about AI, there's still a whole host of hurdles they have to clear to bring something like this on board, from legal and security. And so biting off too much up front can make it impossible to get that across. So by solving for that top objective that's going to resonate most resoundingly within an organization, that's why those objectives are so critical.
So maybe that's a good segue. And we kind of like talk about the challenge really of implementing AI. And like, while the benefits of AI in contact centers are appealing, so people are leaning into it heavily, there are undoubtedly challenges associated with its implementation. It's not easy, even if you select the right technology, and maybe the concerns are well founded overall around AI. There's a lot of noise on the subject and a fair amount of FUD, to be sure. As you talk about how RingCentral addresses these challenges head on, data privacy, security concerns, integrating with other systems, what is RingCentral doing different? What is the point of view that you have around these, and maybe some insights into how you're overcoming these obstacles?
Certainly, education is critical. Helping people understand what the technology can do, what it is, what it isn't. It's certainly not a push play, and it's just going to start to work.
Mhm.
I think we've all had bad experiences calling into an IVR, and we're just running around in circles trying to explain ourselves with no mechanism to actually speak to somebody and no ability for the AI to solve our problem. I think that's a sort of worst case scenario,
Mhm.
because instead of accomplishing a happier customer and a cheaper way of doing business, we've done the opposite. I was unfortunately just at a conference at Frost Sullivan listening to a guy talk about a multi-$100,000 investment in AI. And once they had it implemented, it had actually doubled their call center volume because it was such a poor implementation. And this poor guy, who knows if they'll ever bark up the AI tree again, just because of how much PTSD that they have. But I think one thing with RingCentral, we've got some teams here that have been working in this space for quite some time. Uh, we've learned through trial and error. We can bring those best practices to bear, and so you're really selecting a partner that can share that experience to make sure that when you do push play, everything is working as it should be, and you can start seeing real time the value quickly. I'll give you just a quick example. I mean, even the way that you train your IVR bot, when a customer starts saying agent or speak to somebody, admittedly, Frank, I'm the worst IVR customer maybe in history. I am that jerk that starts pushing zero or just saying operator or speak to somebody that then misroutes me. So again, forgive me if I've been your customer. But even thoughtfully programming the AI in that moment to say, hey, Erik, we understand that you want to speak to somebody. Please tell us X, Y, or Z so that we can then route that call accordingly, right? If you do that, the customer feels heard. They know they're going to get to somebody, but you're still qualifying them to ensure that you transfer to the right team or person. And in the aggregate, those correctly transferred calls could equal hundreds of thousands of dollars in cost savings, and you've still created a good customer experience. That sounds like a simple thing. You'd be surprised how many companies get that wrong. And that's what we look for, is what are those little touches that make this work really well.
So it sounds like you're bringing some real world experience to the table when you're helping to scope out what that go to market solution looks like.
Yeah, 100%. And then I think maybe to go back to your question just around, what are some of those other challenges? I think certainly building an internal business case, it can take on two paths. One, you have companies that are all in, they've seen the Chat GPT demo. Hey, great, go do this. Here's the funds. We love those customers. Don't get me wrong. Please
Let's
call us.
go.
That's right. Off to the races. Absolutely. But I'd say more often than not, though, people are dipping a toe in the water and they're cautious. We want to educate them. We want to provide those great business cases as to what this can do for them. We do some things like market trials to prove out some of the data points sometimes. But the better we can build that partnership and help them then evangelize internally at their own company, I think the more successful we are in the partnership.
One of the things that we see in conversations around AI in particular is obviously, part of the talk track that goes with it is the displacement of people on the contact center. And that can be reapportionment or reassignment within inside the business, but regardless, it has that connotation. And perfectly honest, many of the contact center leaders that we work with are not too excited about that particular element of it. The group of people that they work with has become a family, and the thought of downsizing that family, as much as it may be for the betterment sometimes of the overall organization from a cost perspective and a sustainability perspective, is a challenge. And obviously AI doesn't have to mean that. How do you approach that, as you're talking about the impact of the customer experience? That's one thing, but then what are some of the business impacts, and how are people receptive to some of those various different points or optional points that they have in terms of course correction?
Yeah. So first, I want to be mindful that I'm not underplaying that this is disruptive technology. I think if you look back in history, the printing press, the cotton gin, right? Like all of those things have created seismic shifts in the labor force, and
Yes.
AI, I think, will eventually do that. I think in the short term, I think everybody doesn't have to be overly concerned that this is just going to wipe out the team immediately. But I don't want to be naive and say that changes aren't coming. I think
Mm.
the lens that we try to look through this in is one, how do we make your agents as capable as possible, right? Like, how do we really make them effective? That's step one. We've got plenty of tools to do that. I think the second step is thinking about autonomous interaction versus semi autonomous interactions and helping companies understand that if we can take care of some of the mundane, even if it's just asking some qualifying questions before we transfer to an agent, the number of customers that we can serve with our agent team goes up, hold times come down. I mean, there's so much slack in the system that AI can really start to take out that
Mm.
even if you don't cut your agent team down at all, the ROI can still be substantial, right?
Indeed.
Additionally, we're still seeing the problems of high agent attrition. It's a thankless job, right? Being a contact center agent is a very, very challenging job, and if we can help them have a better experience, again, the P&L really starts to see some fantastic uptick, both top line and bottom line. And depending on what the company's objective is, we want to help them go in that direction. If they feel they need to have some reduction, okay, how do we do that thoughtfully? If
Mm.
they don't, but they still want improvement, okay, same approach. How do we do this very thoughtfully? And to everybody out there that's maybe worried about AI taking their jobs, I mean, I think that's a common feeling amongst all segments of the population. You're not alone. I have those thoughts from time to time. I think maybe I'm hoping that once the AI does take over, they'll have some leniency on me because I helped them do it. I'm not sure, but I kid. So
It definitely sounds like a 12-step program, and certainly we're in a safe space as we talk about this, but it is a challenge that is currently at our feet. It's very real, and you can see the consternation that it's creating. But I believe it is going to give rise to some creativity that puts people in a better place and puts people in a place to win. You mentioned Agent Assist and a whole host of other tools that provide a better experience that allows that attrition rate to fall. Right, churn, whether it's people inside the organization or customers, is an absolute business killer. So I think there's a lot that we can do there for the organization.